And it was within weeks of her child going missing. A psychic knocked on their door. They had flown over, they had information. This is where you're going to find your child. They declared the child to be passed away in the spirit world. Come, and they said, come with me, we're going to find her. And they did. And this is around the late hours. So if you imagine, and it's described in this book, and there might be people listening that think, I've read that book, I know, what that's about. But if you imagine, rightly or wrongly, because for all we know, that psychic might have been trying to help. But in the middle of the night, early hours of the morning, you've got people digging in gravel because they're going to find something, and they never did. And then in the end, the police gave permission that they would dig because the family were desperate.
Everybody, welcome back to Spiritual Talk. Thank you for joining us this morning on what is a Sunday morning, and we can't thank our next guest enough really for coming in on a Sunday morning. A great effort. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't forget to subscribe and also put a big thumbs up in the comments. We really appreciate your support and it helps the channel to grow. Well, let's get on with the show. This morning we have the amazing Natalie Eden Walker. Now, Natalie is not only a medium, she's a past life therapist. She also does experimental trance of the altered states, and also a psychic detective and a forensic medium, which we're going to take a deep dive into. But first of all, good morning, Natalie, and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Brilliant. You've also worked on Radio 1, so we're going to start there. Wow, I've never met any medium that's worked on Radio 1.
Okay, so yes, I say before my mediumship, it was probably as well as, but the mediumship or anything to do with obviously life after death wasn't as big in my life as what it is now. My second job from leaving school was actually in personal protection or security. And one of my contracts, I worked for a company, and one of my contracts was to BBC Radio. So we would look after whoever was going to be in that day. I was then contracted to another company that then looked after a lot of music stars. So I was quite elated that as a young woman in my younger days, I did get to look after and make sure they was okay and have an insight into the personalities off stage of a lot of pop stars.
Wow. So I guess you tune in, you could have, well, not officially, of course, if anyone's listening. Not officially, I guess you could have kind of got their energy and felt what they were like as people.
Definitely. I feel there's something with all of us where we can be in tune with other people, whether we call it the psychic or whether we just say, it's our own way of knowing, oh, you're my cup of tea or you're okay as a person. So there's a lot really. And even now, I don't tune into somebody in terms of great detail or to be nosy about their life. But I don't know how you feel. I feel it's very easy to kind of know whether someone is on the level with you, whether somebody is okay of good things, and equally to know whether somebody's in strife, whether someone has a lot more going on than what they give away.
But especially in that environment. So I worked at the Community Sports Foundation in Norwich, and sometimes we had, there were celebrities and people around us, and you did get that feeling. And you can't always, and people in the entertainment business, they do have, I want to use the word larger aura. They kind of exude their power and their energy, not always for the good, but a lot of people that I met that were celebrities were good people. They were just normal, down-to-earth people.
Absolutely. Yeah, there was a sense of normality. Back then, there was never anything where I was almost nervous or in adulation of whoever I was looking after. To me, it would be, are they okay? Are their surroundings okay? As in they're safe. The way their management wanted them to be safe, kept away from certain people. And just looking at the surroundings. Also, it was at a time where it was very heightened in London, to do with terrorist organisation. So we would literally have to have eyes in the back of our head, because going into the BBC, at the time, there would also be a lot of members of parliament that would carry out their interviews from BBC Radio. Like, even they had television studios in there, even though it's a radio building. So we would have to make sure that all of that was okay within that building.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing, Natalie, as well, because as mediums, people tend to think we're all shrinking violets and we're all very sensitive people. But you worked in security, so and that's amazing. That is amazing. I also want to talk about your other work. Obviously, you do so much. You are a specialist tutor at the Arthur Findlay College.
Yes.
You also past life regression therapist.
Yes.
You're a healer.
Yes.
And so much more. You do the trance states as well. But can we talk a little bit about, take a bit more of a deeper dive into the psychic detective work?
I would love
How
to.
did that start?
Yeah, we can. Funny enough, talking about occupations and BBC Radio before, I left there, and this does lead to the detective work. I left there and had children, so couldn't continue that work whilst on maternity leave. And then I went into my mediumship. And at a time in my life when I had to get other work as well, just to support being a single parent, I went into investigative work. I was a fraud officer. And so I was developing as a medium, doing readings, platform work, and then the day job was investigative work as a fraud officer. So the more readings I'd done and the more contact you have, if you like, with people when you're talking about the other side, the psychic detective kind of come about on a more serious way, or where I was asked a lot more as an investigative medium. Because for me, sometimes our work will lead us where there is confirmation of passing conditions and the bonds that loved one had with friends and family. And there is a knowingness, it's what I call, there is a knowingness about that person's life. But there is a lot more, and it is a lot more frequent, I find, where it's not always murder mysteries or it's not always missing people, but there is a lot more people that come to you to seek out your work because they don't know someone's last movements. They don't know what someone else was thinking. They want to know more than just the passing condition. Are they okay? Maybe they've got they want answers to their questions in the lead up to that person's passing, or they want answers to their questions connected to something that happened in the lifetime. So I was amazed in a very positive way that whilst we do bring a lot, hopefully, if we're working with integrity, you can bring a lot to a recipient. They don't always get their answers. And it kind of come about because I just happened to do a reading years and years ago. I can't remember how many years ago, but it was a long time ago. I'd done a reading and I brought someone through, and the lady she loved it in terms of it was very comforting and it gave her what she wanted. But it wasn't till after that I then learnt that the person that I'd actually had from the spirit world, she could take everything that I was saying, but she was missing. So there was me. I was a little bit aghast because I thought, my gosh, I've brought someone through from the other side and it's never been confirmed. But I then learned this lady had been missing for like 15, 16 years. So my code of conduct and my integrity was the best that I could have brought at that moment in time. Like I wasn't being liable, or I didn't have an intention to, have loose lips and just declare everyone passed. And then she asked me, because of certain things I'd said, she asked me if I would read for other members of the family. And she just asked me if I would delve into this further. And it kind of started from that case onwards, where as I worked with the person from the spirit world about their life, their surroundings, what had happened since, a case was reopened off the back of my work. And I never thought that would happen because obviously a psychic's work doesn't stand up in court. But a psychic's work can lead to triggers and other things of mystery, like other leads and other things happening. So that's where it all started. that's how it started, where I took on more and more of, maybe, if this is the right terminology, the challenging work.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you mentioned your integrity. So you're kind of, whereas a lot of mediums, when they get information or they connect to information, there's got to be a protocol. If you was picking up, so okay, let's say I was in a spiritualist church, and between you and me, I've been picking up information only when I'm in a spiritualist church near where somebody passed, and it's not been
Yeah.
proven they've been passed, they've disappeared, and it was a
Yeah.
child. What do I do with that information? How do I proceed? Do I go to the police? And the problem is with this is being taken seriously by the different police forces. Everybody has different ideas about working with psychics. So what
Yeah.
can we do as individuals that receive really specific information?
I feel there's a number of things we can do, and in my opinion, there's a number of things we have to accept as well. And that is, there is some information we get, whether we keep a diary of it, whether we write it in our journal, make a note of it, literally, not just mentally, we're entitled to do that. But there will be some of that information where we will simply have to hold on to it. It is not appropriate, or it is not okay to share that information at that time. So it's almost like individual cases. I'm not saying every case will be like that, but there will be times when, no matter how strong you feel, your integrity, your sense of responsibility shouldn't lead you to just share certain information, because we can deem it that we feel we're going to help. It may not always be received as helpful. The other option is, you can, even though some people are dismissive, and some people may be working for authorities, the police, investigators, there is something where you are absolutely entitled to approach them and say, look, I have this information. It is off the back of what I do for a living. It's not literal. It's, my psychic work. And you can see where that sits with them, because there are people that will dismiss it. They want the hard facts, or they do need, and quite rightly so, police forces and a court of law need evidence in front of them, not hearsay. I know my work isn't hearsay. I know anybody else's psychic work isn't hearsay, but for them it is, until it's, proven. But then you will get people that work for the police, and obviously people that I've encountered, if you like, that I've met, where they take your work very seriously, and they have a belief. They have a belief that what we are doing can really bring about new leads and bring about comfort to a family, and just give answers where they're at a dead end, or where they've hit a brick wall and don't really know where to take it. So I can't speak for other police forces. I can only speak for those that I have encountered. But overseas, as well as certain police forces in the UK, have contacted me. I have more contact with families, with people that say, can you look into this? That is the majority of my work. But there is a minority of my work where a certain police force, a certain authority has contacted me and said one thing or another. Maybe it's a picture to look at. Maybe they'll say to me, look, if we ask you to look at this, what are your thoughts and feelings? I must just state, though, they never break their code of conduct. They are not suddenly giving me information that is very secret. Do you know what I mean? They're not giving me information that shouldn't be shared. It would be cases that are already in the public eye, and they want my psychic opinion on it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And nor should they, because the more information you have, that sometimes
absolutely.
it can hinder you.
Yeah.
There's lots of things. Does that include forensic work as well, with the detective work?
Well, in terms of forensic work, my perception of forensic work is almost, the forensic is the just investigative way in which I will peel back the layers of knowing exactly what's going on, if you get what I mean, of knowing exactly, not just exactly what's going on within that case, but things to do with like passing conditions, things to do with just the involvement of everybody all round. And also, it's not always murder mysteries, which I know I said before, but sometimes I've been asked from recipients almost like jewelry that is missing or objects that are missing that are important to them, as much as missing persons. As yes, it does contain murders, but also to do with I'm working on a case at the moment to do with somebody that believes somewhat. It is a high profile case. It's been in the public eye, but somebody that absolutely believes that their relative is in prison wrongfully. They've been wrongfully accused, and they have evidence. So what they're doing, although I won't stand up in a court of law because it won't be counted and say, can I tell you what I think? There is something where they're asking my opinion of leads of where they should look, what they could represent, avenues of where they could look more that's going to be more important. And I'm working on that at the moment. And it's never just, I'll read for you for an hour and let's see what we get. Through personal choice, I like to delve into it more. I like it to be ongoing and I like to see it through. It's not always the result you want, but in terms of having an actual outcome, you don't always get the answer to everybody's story. And that's what you have to accept as a medium as well.
Yeah. And I think as mediums, people that are working in this way, there needs to be a sense of not self-reflection, but self-responsibility of how we conduct ourselves, especially when high-profile cases come up. No disrespect, guys, and I'm not having to dig at anybody, but sometimes we give our opinion when we shouldn't. And I saw there was a case 6-7 years ago in Suffolk, and that's all I'm going to say, where somebody went missing, and there was so many mediums giving their opinion, but the actual family did not want that type of help anyway. But it was really interesting. But it can be disruptive to the investigation when so many people are ringing in, giving different opinions to where they think that person is.
Yeah. And sometimes, again, it's one of those things, we can move forward with time. I do not mean we are fortune tellers. I do not mean it like that, but it's going to sound like that, if you like. It's probably my poor terminology. But we can move forward in our head, particularly with the psychic detectives things, to do with outcomes, or to do with this is where I see it leading, and this is where my mind travels going forward. So yes, I believe that does happen if we allow that part of our sense to grow, to develop. So yes, that is part of our work. But at the same time, what we say, it might be frustrating for some. It's, again, the psychic detective work. It isn't for everybody, because there is a sensitivity where we can't force our opinion on someone. And similar, or the same as what you said, I read a book. It's a bestseller for all the wrong reasons, if you like, as in the case is very, very sad, and a very sorry case. But I read a book from a mother wrote it about her missing child. And in this book, and it was within weeks of her child going missing, a psychic knocked on their door. They had flown over, they had information, this is where you're going to find your child. They declared the child to be passed away in the spirit world. Come, and they said, come with me, we're going to find her. And they did. And this is around the late hours. So if you imagine, and it's described in this book, and there might be people listening that think, I've read that book, I know, what that's about. But if you imagine, rightly or wrongly, because for all we know, that psychic might have been trying to help. But in the middle of the night, early hours of the morning, you've got people digging in gravel because they're going to find something, and they never did. And then in the end, the police gave permission that they would dig because the family were desperate. So the police gave permission that, it would be more than literally hands in the gravel, that what had been taking place overnight, they was going to do a proper dig, and they didn't find anything. Now, I'm not saying, oh, just keep sitting on information, because otherwise, what's the point of ever saying that you'll take on someone's work if you're just going to sit on information? So I'm not encouraging that. But again, it goes back to those words, if you like, a sense of responsibility, where if you are asked, you go for it, you do it, do all you can to work so hard at maybe trigger points and leads and answering questions and bringing comfort, and just as people have got hope, just kind of sustaining their hope that it might not always be good news, but you are giving comfort to people that don't know. And it is the not knowing that absolutely traumatizes recipients and people you come into contact with. The not knowing is traumatic. But at the same token, if you're not asked, don't give. That's my opinion. If you're not asked, don't give, by an authority or by people strongly connected to whatever the reason of the case. Don't give just because you feel you've worked and worked well and you've got some sort of answer. There needs to be a boundary, because the family concerned as well, they had a different religion, and with their religion, they believe in the spirit, but they believe in not disturbing the spirit. Now, me and you are going to think totally different. We don't think of anything as disturbance, but you have to respect other people's beliefs. You've got to respect other people's point of view, unless you're asked.
Yeah, I agree totally. And one of the things I want to come back to, so if we feel we want to go, so I know there's people out there that because you run courses on this stuff, you do weekly or monthly workshops on this to help people develop that aspect of their mediumship. Is it slightly different? Is it more like remote view as well? Is there a difference to like a mainstream demonstration or reading I've got with someone? Is the evidence, well, the evidence got to be different because it's got to be more factual. So how do we then hone that in the first place? That takes real good practice.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And it's almost like that practice is what it says on the tin, development. So we can have a knowingness, first of all. You can have developed as a medium and then do, the psychic development courses. There is a number of reasons that I encourage or that I love to teach the psychic detective. One is because of the investigative bringing comfort, but it does also benefit your mediumship, or your psychic work, even if you didn't want to be always the detective, always the informer of, furthering somebody's knowledge of their loved one or whatever's going on in their life. Because yes, remote viewing is a part of it, not the whole thing, but remote viewing is reflected on as part of the exercise. There are things to do with as we do remote viewing, psychometry. There are things to do with photograph reading. There's all manner of tools that you can use, and a wide variety of ways that you can bring in to any case you're looking at, or any reflective moment on what we feel the energy of the scene or the energy of that time of year, that month, that date is giving us.
Yes.
But another reason, so even if you don't feel, I don't know about being a psychic detective, I don't know about, going down the line of working in that way with the spirit world or working psychically in that way, the good thing about the development classes, is it will make you a more detailed medium, if you like, because it helps you. I call it peeling back the layers, but it really helps you to just not skim the surface on anything. And in some ways, it's not that we've got bad mediumship, but the psychic detective development, I know within normal mediumship, if you like, normal psychic work, it helps me to dig a bit deeper than what I probably would have done years ago. Everything was valid. You can't have a wrong piece of evidence if someone's saying yes. But this is where it gives you a greater feeling of there's more to this, so I will carry on with this evidence. Or it also gives you a balanced feeling of I've covered this aspect of evidence, of a message. Do you get what I mean with normal mediumship? So it will help you all round. not just whether you want to do the detective work or not.
Oh, and we had that discussion before we went live, and I've got this thing about when people say, well, you're a medium, people have this assumption that we just do mediumship. We connect with Auntie Doris, to bring her love through, and her roses and her flowers and from her garden. But there is so much. When I read what you do, Natalie, I hope you don't mind me saying this, you do so much, and it gives you so much more depth. And also, how important is it important to bring your psychic ability, your mediumship up? We're working alongside trance. Does that really help?
The trance, when I first started delving into trance, I'd been a medium for a good number of years. I knew about trance, knew what it was, and I'd experimented sitting. Not in order to work with it, but I'd experimented, courses I went on as a student, things that I'd done. When I first started to develop my trance, one thing it did with my normal mediumship is it helped me to sustain contacts. It helped me to stay in my power for longer. So where I used to be really nervous about, my gosh, there's a demonstration of mediumship for 2 hours. I hope I can bring it for that long. And it would never, I'd never suddenly make a quick exit. It would go on for that length of me being asked. But the beauty of sitting in the power and sitting in that trance, that altered state, it strengthened my connection to the spirit world. My terminology, the way I'll put it, is it made me feel closer to spirit in every other aspect of my work, but it helped me to sustain that link. My power doesn't dip in and out as much. So it's not as if, I've come away, let me go back to who you are. There's more continuity having developed my trance years ago. And then I've taught trance. I work within the altered state. And then I would say in the last year, 18 months, I now demonstrate my trance publicly.
Oh, wow.
Not like week in, week out, but I've developed for years before I feel settled enough, or I developed for years before I stopped being my own worst critic about publicly doing a trance demonstration.
Yeah.
Because I am my own worst critic. Am I there yet? Am I there yet? I know mediumship is a massive part of my life. I don't bring myself into constantly assessing, but my own worst critic, just in, is it okay for everybody else?
Yeah. And to do it to the public, it is a lot. Well, it's an exceptional thing to do, because there's a lot of people. Do you think a lot of people bring it to the public too early?
Yes. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I know that sounds quite harsh, but I don't necessarily feel people are bringing it to the public for bad reasons, like as if it's just, get me out there. I feel with all the greatest will in the world, I feel sometimes that there's a misconception or a misunderstanding within ourselves of, they've had a good time, it's worked the way it's worked, this is good, I can feel spirit, therefore now I will unleash what I've got out there. And I just feel there needs to be, it's not a set time, because it's almost like a child, if you like, or like a baby. We all walked and talked at different stages of our life. Some of us are articulate, some of us are creative. And I feel it's the same with our spiritual work. We're all different to do with timings. But the one thing of trance that I feel is a bit of a misconception, or where some people will almost run before they can walk, is that we feel a lot of inspiration, we feel an influence, we feel something that isn't within our vocabulary or necessarily coming from us. And sometimes that is mistaken for, I am within the altered state, spirit is speaking through me, I will now go forth and talk my talk. And actually, what they are saying is very beautiful. What they are saying is inspired and spiritual. But is it truly that contact of the unseen world? Is it truly that purest of blendings that, without doubt, you've let spirit do the work rather than you trying to work spirit? And that's what I feel sometimes can happen too soon. Don't rush development. Don't rush. There's going to be a need for you. It's not going to have a sell by date. People are always going to need confirmation of life after death in some way. So don't rush it.
Yeah. How I see it is kind of deepens my mediumship. I've only just started seeing physical again, and for trance. So
Yes.
It kind of deepens my mediumship. So even if I don't, I've not got a kind of motivation where I want to go out and demonstrate it necessarily, but I feel that blending and that connection with the spirit world helps me to develop on many other levels, and I know you're a healer too, Natalie, as well. And that blending, and someone messaged me yesterday to say who was in the circle that we've just started, and they had experience when they were healing yesterday, they felt someone stepping in them as well and bringing through. It was a message that come through, but it was a loved one for the person that was healing. So again, that proves that we're opening to the spirit world, and it gives us that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. It's there for the taking. And I know a lot of people say this, and I agree. We never stop learning. We never ever stop learning, because as long as the world evolves, we won't stop learning, because every day is a new day. No one day is going to be exactly the same as the previous one.
I hope you don't mind me asking, because I am always fascinated with people's, and it's a very personal thing, people's experience with their guidance or their guides. Do you know the names of your guides? Now, some people do, some people don't. How do they introduce themselves? And what was your experience around that?
Okay. Do you know, I'm really glad you asked that question, because I don't know how you find it, but I feel it's one of the most common questions from people developing or interested in this work. I don't know the name of my guide, or I don't know exactly who they are, as if they're going to be denied their development or denied part of their mediumship. And I don't feel you are. That's my personal opinion as a teacher. I do not feel you are denied anything, or any quality of mediumship or work, just because you do not know the ins and outs and complete identity of your spirit guide. I feel I have more than one guide that I've got to know over the years. I don't have a mass, but I know I have a team, and I know that team steps forward, kind of different spirit guides step forward depending what type of work I'm doing. I know the name of one of my guides, and it was never at a time where I was asking, because I did used to kind of beg for information and sort of, who are you? Let me know your name so that I can call you every time I work. When I first started out, that was my perception of honouring them, if you like, that I must know so much about them. And I certainly don't ignore them, but I just know, I feel that there is a reason for everything. I absolutely believe in synchronicity, manifestation, all things like that. And I just believe that there is absolutely a reason why I was never given the name or heard it from spirit. This is the name, I am your guide. I learned the name of one of my guides simply because I got to know, and I'm talking months and months, not weeks. Over months and months, I did get to know what one of my guides looked like, my connection with them, how I had known them before within a tribe. And so I knew in my mind, this is exactly who you look like. And then I remember being told from the spirit world, you will know my name because you will see my name. And I was told that at one time, and I remember it, but I didn't really think too much about it. Right, I will know their name, I'll see their name. So you just presume, well, I'm going to see their name inside my mind's eye, inside my senses. And then I saw a picture, and it was a picture in a friend's house. And I remember looking and thinking, well, you are my guide. And it wasn't similar. It was exactly what I'd been shown as I had sat for spirit. And then the name of this guide was underneath. It was the name of this guide, and it was just said underneath. There was a date and it was a name, and I thought, that's your name. That's the name of my guide. And then I've just kept it with me ever since. I have other workers. I have other workers, spirit workers, spirit guides in my team. I don't know their name. If I'm given it, that's fine. I prefer to, or not prefer, that's the wrong word, forgive me. I just have a knowingness when they are with me, when they need to be with me, or when I've asked for them. I have a knowingness, and that strength of knowing that blending takes place or they are there is enough for me to not beg for information.
See, I think people like a name because there is a slight fear around who they have with them. Yeah. So in terms of recognizing something that you can trust, the energy that you can trust around them,
yes.
Is there a calling card? Is there a process with the guides when they come close to blend with us, rather than letting in any old Tom, Dick and Harry, who could frankly been one of the Craig, sorry guys, one of the Craig twins. You just don't know, do you? So how do you build that rapport with your guides?
I feel there's a couple of things. The biggest thing, you need to give it your time. And I know there's going to be people, oh, that's good because I sit in a trance circle, or that's good because I'm developing and I'm reading more. You need to give it, I'm not saying you need to hand over, half your working week to them, but you need to give it time to unfold rather than control your process. Let it unfold. And by that, I mean, don't have an end goal. Don't say, I'm learning about my spirit guides because then, I'm going to work with them. You're obviously going to work with them every day that you live and breathe, because they don't just turn up when we decide to go into mediumship mode. So I feel there's something where with spirit guides, you've got to let something unfold within that relationship. You've got to give it your time, and you've got to give it your presence. So don't dictate, right, I'm on this 6-week course, or I've just signed up to a mentorship. By the end of it, it promises this. Don't have those certain promises. You have to do something where you are allowing that unfoldment to take place, to be close to them, and just to have an outpouring rather than a beginning, a middle, the end result. If that makes sense. Have an outpouring, but you need to give it your time for blending to take place. Life is life. Life is very busy and it is very hectic. And I feel sometimes we forget there is this wonder of mediumship. But as human beings, we're constantly being raised. The way I view it, and it does go back to when you talk of names, and names are important. And I totally understand why a lot of students or a lot of people, for them, it is about knowing the name of their guide. And I'm not saying deny yourself that. Just because I say you don't always have to seek it, on the other hand, I'm not saying deny yourself that information either. We are always being raised. You don't get to 18 years old. You don't leave school and feel as if, that's it, I've been raised, I'm now an adult. We're being raised by other people all the time because other people influence us. We're being raised by more people than just our parents. That's how I look at it. As a human being, why would we not introduce ourselves by the name given to us at birth? Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't talk to you now and not know that you're Paul. You wouldn't know that I'm not Natalie. So there is a label from the beginning of life. Some of us, there's a label while we're still in the womb. So very naturally as human beings, we're given a name, and that name represents that person in every shape or form. And what I mean by that is, how many times do we sort of hear someone's name, or somebody sort of says, oh, hi, I'm so-and-so, or we could ask someone, oh, can I just take your name? How many times do we hear people respectfully sort of go, oh, I didn't realise that was your name. Oh, you don't look like a Joan, or you don't look like a Paul. Do you get what I mean? But we've heard it. People say it. Oh, I thought this was your name. I'm so sorry. So sometimes people also, by name association, have it as if it suits us. That's who we're meant to be. So when you've got the feeling and the blending of a spirit guide, it needs to suit us. It needs to sit right and needs to be comfy. So I feel sometimes there is, respectfully, coming from a good place, people want to name them out of respect for their guide, but I need to call you something. I can't just have you as a person. It's like an honor. And I just feel from the spirit world I've learned, they will give it. They're not going to deny you it. They're not there saying you can know everything but my name. But I don't feel they want us to stop still, and it's a point of focus. Do you get what I mean? And, you know, we're denying everything else to ourselves because we're so fixated on what's the name of them.
So do you, to me, I feel that I get caught up in my human constructs of what we want and what we need, we think we need. Again, it's coming
Yes.
back to that old spiritual truth,
Yeah.
know thyself.
Yes.
Do you ever
Yeah.
meet people and want to call them a different name? I have.
Yeah. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I've whether it's brain fog, whether it's old age, whether it's just the amount of people that, you know, I work with recipients, the amount of people I meet, sometimes someone will say their name, and not even in readings, but I will know someone's name and I end up saying, oh yeah, so and so, and they'll go, no, I'm this name, you know, my name's Joan, and I'll think, why am I calling you the wrong name? But I don't know why. So sometimes we name things all the time other than what it really is.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had quite a few experiences of those, and this will lead us nicely into your work as a past life regression therapist. Now, we've been lucky enough to have a couple of people on recently that talked about soul planning, and Dr. Ronnie last week and her regression work. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I was gonna ask
Yeah.
before, do you meet people that have memories of in between lives? That really fascinates me.
To do with past life regression, I feel, and I don't want to make sort of too hard and fast categories. So I'm not saying this as if, right, this is rigid. But I feel there's almost two aspects of it that people will sometimes fall into. There are people that have memories, or they'll say, I'm so drawn to this aspect, this country, this aspect of life. I want to know if there's a link, or they have very, very vivid dreams. So can I go through the process of past life regression because I'm so interested and feel as if I have a knowingness, you know, I know too much about something, but I'm not that person. Can I see if there's a link? And the other aspect, or the other very common reason or very common category, if you like, that sometimes people will fall into is sometimes trauma or pattern of behavior in this life. So they're not bad people at all, but there could be a poor pattern of behavior, their self-worth. I've found in recent years, the last couple of years, I would say 3 to 4 years particularly, there are a lot more people coming for past life regression where they're trying to understand who they are in this life. So they want to know about a past life. Is there a reflection? So I kind of feel, I don't want to make it rigid, but there's two aspects of people that I meet for their reasoning of, because I always say to people, why do you have a yearning? Not because I choose who I'm going to do past life regression on, not at all. But again, code of conduct, I've got to keep those people safe. It is not an unsafe practice, but I want to know that somebody's mind, body and soul is in the right place before I undertake that practice. So I don't ask them too much, but I ask them, what are your reasons for looking into this? What are your reasons for wanting to go down that path of the linkage of what's gone on before? So I feel there's two things, as I've mentioned, that people will kind of fall into.
Sorry, Natalie, we've got a delay on here sometimes, guys. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
I try to avoid talking over people because I think it's rude. No, I'm not doing it intentionally. There is a delay, guys, so I'm so sorry.
Do not worry.
Okay, so is there any kind of specifics or examples you could give of that? Some stories you might have.
Yeah. Um, to do with the two kind of different categories people fall into, you mean? Yeah, absolutely. So there is somebody that I know that there was a past life regression, and this absolutely linked to her wanting to know. There was someone that had come into her life, a relationship, and they'd been with each other a while. It wasn't a new relationship. They'd been with each other a while. She didn't disclose to her partner the reasons why she was going to come to me for past life regression, but he knew she was quite a spiritual person and she wanted to go down this route. So she felt she felt they'd been linked before, and she just wanted to know her previous life because she'd had certain dreams and certain happenings, and just how their souls were so aligned in in this lifetime. Their souls are so aligned, and it was just a bit more than just I've met someone, we get on really well, now we can't imagine not being together. It was more than that. So she wanted to know about past lives because there was dreams or there was thoughts, recurring thoughts she was having of where she felt they was linked before. And that was confirmed. She did tell me that her feelings afterwards. So I asked a few questions, made sure she, the mind, body and soul is aligned with this being a good practice for her. But she told me, oh, it's so weird because you talk of a loved one and you talk of that when she was talking, and then I relayed to her and said to her, this is what's come up. And she remembered a few pieces of information that she'd spoke of. They're not unconscious, they're not out of it. So she remembered or recalled a few things that she had said or that were playing through her mind. And then I gave it in more detail of what had been picked up. And it kind of did confirm the thoughts and feelings she'd had. And it also was confirmed because there was a certain country they kept going back to visit. It was a favourite holiday destination. So it doesn't stick out as anything prolific, but they had a certain favourite holiday destination. And this is absolutely where she felt they was both linked in a previous life. And it was confirmed. It was confirmed during her past life regression.
Wow.
On the flip side, I have read for somebody. I've also, when I had past life regression, so I can kind of reflect this, I'm thinking of like the recipient in my mind now, but also myself. When I had regression, it completely opened up why, with this other person, they had a very temperamental relationship with someone from their family. And they just really wanted to know, they wanted to do past life regression for other reasons, actually. They was very interested in what once was somebody they know had it and said that they'd felt very empowered after, to kind of just know where they'd been, where they'd come from and where they was going. This person had past life regression for those reasons. But what else came out from the past life regression was different choices they'd made in a previous life, and also how they had been treated was a profound reason for what puts them on edge now. Yes, it's good to be cautious. Nobody wants to leave themselves wide open to be hurt. Who wants to do that? So we're all cautious and have a degree of wanting to know somebody coming into our space, not just relationship, but friendship. But it totally explained why she almost kept going back for more punishment, why there wasn't a degree of self-worth to know you've almost got to agree to disagree and not be so upfront with this challenging friendship. And her past life regression explained a lot more about that as well.
Yeah. So it's a handy healing tool to help people move forward.
During the past life regression, you do synchronicity. You've said the word, the perfect word, which is healing. I believe any past life regression, whilst yes, it's brilliant, it can be evidential of dreams, of thoughts, of feelings that we've got, or just the wanting to know more about ourselves, there should be a huge healing practice with it. And who I chose to do my past life certification with, to be a practitioner, there is a part 2 of past life regression where healing takes place, cord cutting, where people accept that what once was doesn't have to be brought up to date. And I just personally believe that in an ideal world, I would love it if all past life regressionists done that, because things are surfacing, and there are beautiful things surfacing. There are vulnerable feelings surfacing, and there should be a healing for anything that has made someone feel vulnerable, even if it is within an altered state.
Okay, something is coming to me at this moment. So why do we bring stuff from past lives into this life? Why can't we remember it? And once we have this opportunity to do a past life and have a healing process and cut cords from people from the past, how does that change our future? That's a big one. Sorry about that.
It is, and you're quite right. You're quite right to ask. I may not have the answers to all of it, not because I don't want to or I'm not willing to. It's part of our evolvement. In some ways, I may not have the answer, and that is an answer, if you get what I mean, or the whole answer, and that is an answer in itself. And what I mean by that is, to me personally, because I do often rack my brains and think, well, I've got this past life, or, I can't remember. There's people around me that sort of go, this is my earliest memory, and they're like 1 or 2 years old. And I sit there and think, well, I cannot go back that far. I have got a memory of being young, but I'm not younger. And I'm thinking, gosh, is that me personally? Yeah. What I feel it's to do with the overlap of the conscious mind and the subconscious. I don't feel we sort of go through life right. We've got this limited space in our head, in our memory bank. So therefore, as new things join, we rinse out something before. I'm not saying it's like that, but I just feel the subconscious is a very powerful, wonderful thing. So your subconscious will hold on to a lot, which is why sometimes there's fragments of things. So we don't get the whole big picture, but we can have fragments. That's why sometimes there is on record, children or adults, I don't just want to discriminate to children, but on record there are children that mention things from a time gone by, and when it's been Googled, they're absolutely right. Or they know a loved one, they speak of a loved one, and the family member's sitting there thinking, my gosh, she wasn't even born when that person was alive. Now, it might not be the presence of the spirit world, it might be to do with past life, it might be to do with their connection before. And so I feel that there is a lot contained within our subconscious. But when we're awake, going through life, even our development, as mediums, the conscious mind is used a lot, and used as a majority. So I feel sometimes we don't remember everything, and we have to, or we choose to delve into it because we're accessing part of our subconscious mind. Yeah. So it's there, but it's almost like we've just got to go in and have a little look. The reasoning behind that, from my opinion, is sometimes a lot of us, have you ever had experience where someone may ask you a question? It may be the title of a film. It may be, who was that name of the school friend? What was our friend called when we done so-and-so? And we sit there, and for the life of us, in that given moment of living, we cannot remember the name. We cannot access it. We go to sleep, we wake from that sleep, and there it is, just like that. When you are asleep, there's access to your subconscious. When you dream, there's an access in our brain of the subconscious mind coming into play, which is why we can wake up sometimes and go, Christine, that was the name of my school friend. Do you get what I mean? It's like, why do we think of that a day late? It's because we've been able to access it within the altered state of sleep, of subconsciousness. So that's the reasoning behind why I feel sometimes the memory or of times gone by within a previous life, the soul is always awake. That's us. We've got our soul that is living within us now, or we are living within that. That is awake and alive and kicking. But the past life from the soul isn't always there to be accessed, isn't always there automatically to get a hold of. But that may not answer everything or all of it, but that's my perception. That's my reasoning behind why we can't just always go, well, let me know now what that means. Do you get what I mean?
I do. It's an
The way
interesting,
I
absolutely, and it's very much a healing modality. But I am starting to, like, for example, when I first came into mediumship a long time ago, I met a lovely gentleman, and I'd been told this by mediums and psychics before, but I hadn't really listened to it. But this particular gentleman carried a lot of, how can I say, respect, integrity, and I
yeah.
believe what he said. Now, he said I had a past life in ancient Egypt, and what I was doing from that life, I had to bring elements of that into this in terms of my mediumship and my healing. It turns out one of my main guides is from that time. So
Yeah.
therefore, we not just bring through relationships and challenges that are important to us. It could also be aspects of that past life from a positive thing, not necessarily a negative thing, whether it's communication or, you know, someone who's going to be a head of state, let's arguably say, that was someone who could speak in different languages from a past life, that was a good orator, suddenly has to use that ability. Do you believe in stuff like that? It's a bit of a stretch,
Yes,
man.
I do. Yes, I do believe I do believe in evidence and information and stuff like that. Yes, I do. And again, to me, I'm kind of like not just the psychic detective bringing answers to recipients. I'm my own psychic detective. I try to delve and answer my own questions all the time. I am like constantly that forensic of show me more, let me know more. I need to, the inquisitive medium, if you like, of my
Yeah,
own self. So I will go in and look of why is the why. Why is why? And I will go in and look. And I just feel it's similar to, yes, we all go on holiday to relax and we all have time off or visit places, not just holidays. We all visit places sometimes for all manner of reasons. Sometimes it can be our work. There are people close to us that we'll meet within our local area, within this work. There are people that we've never met before as we go overseas or to different lands where we will absolutely say a lot of, oh my gosh, their way of life, their approach to life, their perspective. Now, whether it is the country, the government, the history, the culture, the religion that they've got, there is something about the world as a whole where, yes, we all share the world, but everybody has got a different aspect. Everybody comes from a different angle. And
yeah,
we would hope that rather than it be conflicting, I feel there's a huge lesson in observing and absorbing the way other people are within that country, the peace they bring about, the giving. I'm not saying that it's elusive from, the country we're from or whatever our heritage is, but everybody, again, it goes back to we're raised from everyone, or we're
yeah,
continually being raised. There is an influence from the living as much as the unseen world. And I just feel that, yeah, absolutely, there is a lesson to be learned in people from other places, their outlook, why they deal with things the way that they deal with them.
yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah,
just feel that's why sometimes it would have been mentioned to you about Egypt or even another country, if you've got other spirit guides, why things have been mentioned to me. I don't just feel it's you are a medium, you're working, you wanted to know a little bit about your spirit guide, this is where they're from, they're not my heritage. I don't feel it's just that. I feel it's because they've got other things to bring me about life, about peace, about healing, about making the most of living, not just having one foot in the spirit world.
yeah. Natalie, it's been such a pleasure interviewing you this morning on a Sunday morning. We can't thank you enough for coming in this morning. But can we finish on one question?
Yeah.
What are we not talking about that we should be? And within our modality, if you like, mediumship, healing, everything that we do, what should we be focusing on going forward?
I feel what we're not talking about enough, it is spoken of, but what we're not talking about enough, I want to label it or name it universal energy. And I feel universal energy, it is quite a broad spectrum, so it kind of encounters a lot of things. Universal energy is sharing space with people. We're not talking enough about completely being present within our own soul, being in that room. The modern world is fantastic. It is. I couldn't do without, modern things to keep in touch with my children, friends, family. So I don't want to suddenly delete the world as it has moved forward and stepped forward. But I feel we need to be speaking more about truly being spiritually present and the universal energy. And what I mean by that is we need to be talking about the power of the mind, how destructive, how positive. We need to be moving forward with each other and have more of a community feeling. By people you are close to, people that you share space with, so they might not be your family or your closest of friends. I feel we just need to be delving more and talking more about energy that affects us. Because, and this is where I'm almost that conflicting medium, if you like, because I know not everyone will agree with this. I'm a huge believer that past life regression and the psychic detective, where we are moving back, if you like, and looking back, I'm a huge believer that there is an insight into looking forward. I do not mean fortune telling, but we need to be looking more into the instincts we have energetically about what is ahead of us. Going with that gut instinct, listening more, not just observing and thinking, I'll hang on to that. It's like be productive with that universal energy. Talk about it, not to convert people, but educate. Every time we speak on this podcast, development groups to each other during the address, every time we speak, it is an education, and that needs to be spoken about more.
Brilliant. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for asking me. Thank you so much. It is a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much. And guys, we can't thank Natalie enough for coming on, especially on a Sunday morning. And guys, thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. Don't forget the thumbs up in the comments and subscribe. It really helps us to support the channel. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you all very soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.